All right, then I will call the City of Muskego Library Board meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. on June 18th, 2025. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Yeah, which I will be
Take your
happy
time.
to do in just one moment. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
And now our back recorder is working. There we go. Okay, now the backup recorder is going, so apologies for that delay. And yes, roll call, Carrie? Here. Barb?
Here.
Alderman Delgy?
I'm here.
Estelle?
Oh, I'm here.
All right.
Tracy.
Tracy. Jennifer.
Phyllis. Here.
And
You too.
Statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Excellent. Public comment. Is there a member of the public online, it looks like?
It does look like there's a member of the public, so I am going to allow Sherry to talk if she, or Sherry, if you can hear me, do you want to raise your hand if you're here to make a public comment? I don't see a hand. So we're going to assume that Sherry's just here to listen, correct? Okay. All right.
Okay. Then moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month, May 20th, 2025, and the May 2025 financials?
So moved.
Thank you, Tracy.
I second.
Thank you, Carrie. Any discussion? Any questions? Comments?
On page 5, towards the bottom of the page, under CDW Government Inc., I saw that we ordered the monitor for the job pod.
Correct. Yes. So the job pod is coming in a couple of weeks. It's going to have a monitor mounted inside of the pod, and that is coming out of a grant, so they're reimbursing for that. We're not paying outright, but we do have the monitor coming for the pod.
Very exciting.
It is very exciting.
When I forgot the reminder, please make sure your phones are silenced or off. Just remember to say that. Any other questions, comments?
Is that nice to see a ton of maintenance stuff on it? So
Yes, definitely.
No large dollar amounts.
No,
on it,
right.
right?
Come on, Tracy, you jinxed it.
Yeah.
Anything else? I, for once, don't have many questions. All right, then all of those in favor of passing or approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So, we're moving on to the President's report, and I actually have a bit of a report, but I have to ask Dave because he's the rules guy. Are we going to decide on times for the interviews in this discussion right now? Because it's not
Yeah,
an item.
it's not specifically agendized.
Right.
I think the way to approach that is to ask everyone about their availability, and then we'll circle back once we know candidates in from Kate,
Sure.
whether or not it all works.
Okay. Just wanted to know if we should go into it now or if that was a later thing.
Yeah.
So, President's report is that we were here about 5 hours today interviewing 4 different candidates with some time in between, but not a lot. No. So to start at the beginning, we got 15 applications total, and the HR director sent all of them to us because every single candidate was qualified in some way or another. So we met last week, 2 weeks ago, the committee, and we weeded them down to 6 that we all thought were really good candidates. And then of those 6 we invited for interviews today and Monday. 2 of them withdrew their applications in the meantime, and one was today, so then we wound up doing 4 interviews today, which was good. And then we whittled it down now to 2 really good candidates that will be a hard decision to make. So we'd like to bring in both of those candidates to meet the full board, to interview with the full board. What dates were we looking at? Dave's in charge of that committee, so he can talk about schedule. But if you have any questions or, we can talk, I don't know how much to get into the candidates. You all will receive their applications and their resumes and things like that before we meet.
They'll receive the applications and the resumes prior to the board meeting.
That's what I meant, yeah.
They haven't gotten them already.
No.
We had originally thrown out that the week of the 30th would be a potential week for those meetings, for those interviews.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't pick a particular date, so at this point in time, because it's the 4th of July week, is there anybody that's not going to be here?
I'll be gone from the 25th to the 9th, so I'll probably not be involved.
Yeah, that's pretty much, that's a long time. So, if you desire, we could make it available for you to participate via Zoom, if you would like.
I'll be here.
They have Zoom over there. I'm confident of that.
Yeah, it just might be 3 in the morning for you.
It might be 3 in the morning,
You'll jet lag anyway.
You'll be available because you're
with my
nothing
eyes closed.
When?
The week of the 30th of June.
You could make that available, and if it's possible.
I'm flying out that week, it's gonna depend on which day. Yeah, same. I'm off for the summer, so I don't have daycare every day. So it just depends on the day.
Okay.
I know
I think if I was not mistaken, you throw out 2 dates and then 2 time slots on both of those dates, right?
Yeah, and we were looking at late afternoons. When do you fly out?
I work every day that week, and I fly out on a day that I'm working remotely. And so I'm flying out on Thursday at 5 a.m. But I cannot leave my clinic in the middle of the day. I only have evening availability.
Right.
Just
Okay.
getting here at 5:30 is almost an impossible feat. But I can be remote in the afternoon. I just don't have time during the daytime that I can participate.
What about Friday the 27th? I know we've been looking at that next week, but is that open for anybody or not you?
Yeah, I'm not in town.
Sorry.
I'm not in town the 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Gotcha.
I'm available on the 26th.
Yeah. Does anybody object to doing it at 5:30? Starting
What
at
day?
5:30?
On the 30th?
And any of the days that week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, so the one thing that I would say is that we wanted it to be that prior to the interview, that they would have some time with the staff.
Correct.
And staff would have to make sure that they are available when they're not necessarily working.
Yeah, at 5:30, the evening staff that would be here would be on the service desks unless it was very slow where maybe 2 people could come in. We could certainly invite staff to come if you're doing it after hours, but I don't know that everyone can or would be able to.
Because if we did it at 5:30, we could have staff here for a 4:30 with the candidate that would be here at 5:30, and then roll right into that candidate at 5:30, so there'd be some overlap with staff.
Sure, yep, if it was 4:30
Yeah.
to 5, yeah, I think staff could do that, or at the very least, like, the 4:30 to 5, you know, if people were able to come and go as like they were able, because I'm sure there are other obligations for staff too, but I do think, of course, staff would be very interested. If that were the case, would you be looking at doing the candidates on different days then, like Monday for one and Tuesday for another, if you're looking at that staff overlap time and having the board?
Right, and not having the
evening?
candidates meet each other.
That too.
Right.
Well, at that point, once we're at that point, you know, with only 2 candidates, you know, I mean, it becomes, you know, if they both accept it, then they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
The
Don't you
candidates
have
are-
to post it or something? Because we had to for ours.
We don't have to post, but if anybody asks, we have to
Let them know.
disclose.
Okay.
So, yeah, anything less than 5 candidates, you have to disclose.
Right.
But you don't have to, you know, you don't have to proactively post.
Right, okay.
You don't have to proactively post.
I'm free either day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Would everybody prefer to do 2 days or try to do it? And I mean, we'll get a mixed bag with staff if we did it in 1 day, because they would have to stay a little longer. If we started at 4:30 and then the other person came in at 5:30 for a staff meet and greet. You're shaking your head.
I guess it depends on how long too you're thinking for a staff meet and greet, because at one time you had said like, oh, maybe if it was like a 4:30 to 5:30, so that's like an hour, but then they need time to interview with you. So I think
Yeah.
it depends on.
Right, it would be, you know,
your
staff meet
schedule.
and greet would probably be a half an hour to 45 minutes.
Okay.
Unless the board would like to do formalized interviews with staff. There's 2 ways to do this. You can either have them sit down with questions, or it's more of a meet and greet, get to know them a little bit, talk about their roles and responsibilities. It's kind of a cultural preference. It can be done either way.
What did you do for Brittany? Do you remember? I know it was a long time ago.
I do not. I was not involved in that one.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No.
I thought you were, and then you went left, and then you came back.
Nope.
Never mind.
I think I'm the only one.
Okay, Tracy then.
I was going to say, Tracy's the one that's
You're
there.
wrong, yeah.
We did it on the same day, because none of us wanted to come for
Yeah.
Well, 2,
days.
yeah.
Some kind of.
So,
Did you do it during the day or at night, Tracy?
it was midday, late night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think it'd be important to have you there, and, you know, it'll be better for Barb via Zoom because the time difference won't be so
What
bad. It won't
date are
be
you-
2 in the morning.
What date are you looking at?
When are you flying out? Like when
25th.
the
Next
oh,
one.
so you'll
You're on
be there.
I'll do my best, but you don't have to adjust it all based off of me. I mean, we have the whole board, and I'll do my best to attend if I can, and if I can't, I'll rely on all of, I trust you. You've been doing this a long time.
Well, it's always good to have as many people
Yeah.
from the board involved
Right.
as we can. And if for some reason you have to appear virtually, I mean, are you okay with doing that?
I am if it's in the evening. Even during the daytime, I can't appear virtually, but if you did a 5:30 virtual, that should be reasonable.
What about if we were to do you as a virtual, would 4:30 work? Or is that too soon? Yeah, that look tells me that's too soon. Don't feel bad.
I'm usually still seeing patients at that time.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody's okay with a 5:30 time period, then we can look at doing that. If we can get the band together on the other side, meaning the candidates and Kate.
Right.
I mean, Kate should already be pretty well locked in because she knows that's the week we're doing this.
Mhm.
But making sure the candidates are in town would be good.
Yeah.
Because they all have lives too.
Right.
So we would do 5:30 and 6:30?
And would it be on
Which day
Monday?
are you
Thinking.
I was just going to ask, does anybody have a preference between Monday or Tuesday?
So I can't do Monday, but again, if that works better for everyone at a time.
Is that
do
July
Tuesday.
1st?
And then
Tuesday?
Tuesday I
Tuesday.
have to leave at 8, so I don't know how long.
8 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll be,
It's Tuesday the 1st.
Yeah.
yeah, it's the July 1st.
I'll
So
need to be
5:30.
gone, I'll need to be done by 8 p.m. too, with all due respect.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be here like till like 9 o'clock at night.
No,
I'll do my
no,
best.
it should take, you know, the interview, by the time the interview's done, it should not take us more than 30 minutes to wrap that up. So,
I think that's a traveling day for me.
So we would do interviews. They would do a meet and greet with the staff, then we would interview, and then after both interviews are done, would we discuss them at that point? Would we have a meeting about that right then?
Usually you do.
I would think so.
Yeah, oh no, when we're done with both candidates, we will discuss and review them at that time. Absolutely.
Okay. So it may be a little bit longer than just the interview time.
Well, it would definitely be longer than 6:30 to 7:30.
Right.
But like I'm saying, normally a half an hour is more than adequate.
Yeah.
It's only when there's hard decisions, which it may be.
It may be.
I think to avoid the conflict of them being at with the staff at the same time, I would do the one at like 4:30, like from 4:30 to 5, that she can mingle with the staff, and then 5 to whatever time frame we're doing for their interviews, 45 minutes, whatever. During that time, the other one should come in and then.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
idea.
And we
Yep.
did,
Yeah.
we rolled them through.
Yep, we kind of weaved them around.
Yeah.
It's a good way. There's a good thing. There's 2 ways out of this room. So.
You could probably just have them in one of the pods and they could come in and talk with them, come back out.
So, yeah, we'll verify that with Kate, and then she'll work it out, and we'll send it on the staff once that, and you'll get the materials ahead of time, at least a week.
Oh, say you have the 30th then? Is that the?
No, the first.
Oh, the first one?
Tuesday the 1st, 5:30 and 6:30 hopefully for the interviews, and then a half hour after to discuss and pick a new director.
Yep.
And the current candidates are not from the same library, but they are they both from Bridges?
They're both
Yes,
from
they're both from in a Bridges library, so one's a current director, one's an assistant director. I think they're alike and different enough that it's going to be a hard decision, but
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna have like standardized questions that we each get to ask?
Absolutely.
Alright, okay.
Absolutely, along with a nice little scoring matrix.
Okay, alright, perfect.
Did Kate say that she's going to email those questions ahead of time?
Yes.
yeah,
That's what I thought.
Yep.
they're going to draft them together.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So we'll come forward.
All right. Any other questions before we move on to the agenda? All right. Moving on to the director's report.
Okay. All right, so a lot of things going on at the library. Obviously, summer is our busiest time of the year. So we had our kickoff at Jammin' in the park on June 6th, and we registered about 280 people at that event for the summer reading program, which is very good. It's a little bit lower than last year. I think Jammin' in general, they said attendance was a little bit less than last year, but it was profitable for the chamber for the first time, which is exciting. So I think it's an event hopefully they'll be continuing, and it's a great chance to get people who maybe aren't library regulars, although we saw several of those as well. But it draws a bigger crowd. So that was really exciting, and the Bridges Library is running a summer challenge again, similar to the Passport Challenge that they've done in previous years to visit other libraries. So you may have noticed the dragon display when you walked in that our marketing librarian put together. She made it really eye-catching this year, and we've had really great attendance, or participation rather, in that. And our children's staff has been very busy with the additional programs and things that they have had going on, as well as circulation, not only with the increased visits to the library, but also with continuing to promote and sell the garden walk tickets and raffles. So lots of things exciting and coming up. This dates of note, we'll actually be talking about that a little later, confirming, but tentatively, Wednesday, July 16th, if we continue on the third Wednesday trend, will be the next board meeting. The Friends First Friday Coffee will be on the 11th next month due to the 4th of July. That's going to be bumped. And then building updates, the parking lot construction project is slated to begin Thursday, August 7th. So they sent out the initial schedules. I'm still, our planning meeting with the company is not until Tuesday, July 29th. So that's a little too close to that start date for my comfort. So we're already taking some proactive measures to make sure that we're prepared for that. As Brittany mentioned at the last meeting, we were told by the company that on the 2 days that we're going to be milling, the library will not be able to be open to the public or to staff because of the trucks coming in and out and the dust and safety concerns. So we have reached out to the new Berlin Library, who has agreed to let us use their community rooms for staff in-service. We did not schedule one in the spring in anticipation of having this closure over the summer, and they were kind enough to reserve not only the 7th, which is the first milling date, but also the 8th as kind of a contingency for rain. And then, unfortunately, with construction schedules, we're going to do our best to plan and make sure that we have additional things in place. If it goes to a Saturday, then maybe the staff in-service doesn't happen then. So maybe the structure of it, since there are going to be 2 milling days, is that we would plan one day that's the really important things, and another thing, I don't want to say unnecessary, but like bonus things that if for some reason the milling days get impacted where we don't have to be closed for 2 days on days that most of the staff would be here, we would do just one in service and change the structure. The great thing is that we'll know in advance because it's the first milling day, so maybe it's an 8-hour staff in service for the part-time staff instead of just having them for 4 hours on that day. But we haven't finalized all the plans for that, but we're trying to be really proactive and think ahead to how we're going to handle those couple of days, and then also how we're going to adjust services during the parking lot to make sure that it's probably going to be a curbside only level due to the number of spaces, but we will still do curbside book delivery, pickup, summer reading coupon redemption, because that is overlapping with the slated end of our program, and all of the in-person events have been either relocated to Bloom Park or other areas or postponed. So we'll make sure that we're still accommodating everything we would normally do. And of course, we'll keep you updated as we know more, and hopefully we will find out a little bit more before that construction meeting, but that is slated for after the next board meeting.
And we're going to put this all on Facebook and social media and everything.
Yep.
Because we can share, or I always share the news.
Yes, so thank you. That's a really good point. We want to work, again, as proactively as we can. The problem with the dates being it's with their schedules, but if other projects get pushed back or things, I think we want to phrase it in a way that these are tentative, and we will make sure that we're putting the most up-to-date information on our website, but we want to probably be referring people to their and/or Facebook for their updates. So we would like to start, and the plan is within the next few days probably, because it's still early in the program where a lot of people are coming in to register, putting out signage, the big A-frames right when you walk in the hallway that this project is happening. These are the tentative dates, and check back on this, and a little information about the impact to services, and then fleshing that out more as we get closer and have a more firm idea of when it's going to actually be the closure dates and things. Yeah.
When you do it, can you also update it on the regular library website so that if people aren't looking on Facebook but are looking at just the regular website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So both places. We'll put it on Facebook, but then and we could even for Facebook just say, please refer to our website, so that you're not having to duplicate like the information, but making sure that we're linking back. But yes, we will have probably a specific page that's just dedicated to, if you've been on our page before, there's the little icons across the middle that are kind of the news flash kind of things, like here's the latest calendar, here's important things going on. We'll probably have a page dedicated just to here's the status of the project, here's the dates as we know them now, here's the service level once the project gets going, where people can check back. Because as we talked about last month, there's going to be that period of time where the concrete cures and people can't drive on it. But if for some reason, we're going to probably advertise this for a little bit of that rain contingency as well. But if we can then open up sooner, we will absolutely do that. So we want to make sure that we're communicating that so people have the most accurate information. And we do want to start doing that sooner versus later.
Right. How long total do they think it's going to take?
We won't
From
know until the planning meeting.
No, so we do kind of, I think, have a rough idea, not maybe of when the entire project would finish, but the first milling day is August 7th. Then August 19th is the second milling day when they're anticipating doing, that remaining, like the curbside spots. There might be, depending on the schedule, it looks like a slight overlap between those 7 days following when they've finished pouring the concrete, because I imagine that's when the clock starts ticking for that, though I do have emails out to confirm that with the crew that I'm reading that schedule correctly. But from what I can tell, they had about 4 days for the concrete work for the big pad and the front entrance. And then I imagine it's 7 days after that time that we can't go on it. So there would be a slight overlap with that, but basically switching off then when they do the second milling day and the front part will reopen, that we would be able to have people back in the building. So tentatively, August 7th through August 22nd is what we're anticipating as kind of that wider bridge, but possibly if things really were moving and there were no rain contingencies, August 7th to the 20th would be when it would have the biggest impact to services, that curbside level. And then as they do the milling, the 19th, and then they pour concrete at that exit, it would be another 7 days following that. So it would extend past the 22nd. I'm sorry, maybe it would have been helpful to show a calendar, but the library will still be accessible. People will be able to visit because that front lot will be done. So the 8th to the 22nd is the biggest service impact date. Did anyone have other questions about that? Great. And then the other things in the report are things that I think you have seen from the previous things pertaining to Job Pod and things that have all been updated at previous times. And then just Lois Cotton is celebrating 6 years as a library aide, which is pretty exciting. We love to see the retention of people and how long people love to stay. And then obviously statistics on the next page. One thing I did want to mention with our monthly statistics is we have reference transactions, and those are defined by the Department of Public Instruction. So that's placing polls and helping people research questions and things like that. And there's really clear guidelines for when and how you record those types of transactions. And then starting in roughly 2019, we started tracking technical or other questions because we do a lot at the reference desk assisting people with the printers or copiers and things that don't count for the DPI, but are still things that take a lot of staff time and show how the library is being used. And something I just wanted to mention is that that is an internal metric that we've done. That's not a state standard. So lots of libraries track it, but there aren't guidelines the same way there are for DPI. And something we've realized over the past year or so is that because of staff turnover and things, people were trained on different ways to track that information because it's a little bit more subjective in terms of, well, what counts as a question and how are we counting it? And we have worked now to rectify that so that everybody's on the same page. And you're not really going to see it in this month's transactions, but what we have decided to do or to try out is recording it the same way that DPI records it, roughly the same metrics. So if one person comes in and they place 3 items on hold, for the DPI recording, that would be counted as 3 transactions because you're placing 3 holds for the patron. And we have not previously used that same metric consistently for things like program registrations. If one person is signing up for 3 programs, we wouldn't necessarily count it as that, or specifically for summer reading, which is why I'm bringing it up now. If someone came in to register their family of 5, even if the kids are with them, we were counting that as one transaction, which really does not reflect how busy we are during that time of year. So we have moved to what I think will be a much better and more consistent metric for measuring that. But it does mean it doesn't really show up in May, but when we see June's numbers, there's going to be a big spike even from what we've seen last year in 2019. And I think it's in part our program has grown, but also it's going to be a reflection of those different standards for how we're measuring the questions. So I just wanted to call it out in advance that when people see it next month, of course, we can touch on that then as well. And again, this is an internal metric, but I think it's going to be a lot more helpful for us at internally tracking how busy we are, because we see the breakdown here, but I'm also looking at that, and the director would be looking at that in a daily and monthly way to be seeing what is our scheduling demand like, how many people do we need on the desk, and when we're recording this other way, it doesn't accurately reflect that during summer reading, when we're at our busiest time, we weren't accurately tracking how many people we were assisting. So hopefully this will help with that going forward. So it was something I wanted to call out. And that is
Any other questions?
Job
Right.
pod?
Oops.
Oh, job pad, yep.
Do we have a delivery date?
I apologize. I don't know the date offhand. I believe it's going to be in the next few weeks. I think by the end of July was the arrival date.
We'll just keep looking for it when we come in. Right?
Yeah. Me too.
When you're noting the percentages down with the changes, is parentheses minus and non-parentheses plus?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yep. So yeah. So when you're seeing that parentheses, that's a great question. That you can see in 2024 we were doing a lot more curbside. That service has definitely slowed down. We do still occasionally get them. A lot of times now, I would say our curbsides are more for accessibility reasons, people who have mobility issues, or even just people with small kids in the car and they don't necessarily want to get out. But even though we still offer the service and it's on our website, it just isn't as utilized as it used to be.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to point out the library visit, how improved it has become since 2019, which 2019 was a big year. I don't know if everyone knows, but our numbers were generally pretty good pre-pandemic, and we've been trying to get back up, and we've far exceeded that.
Yes, which is very exciting. And we have the new gate, so we're also probably getting a more accurate measure of that as well. But I do think that we're busier even than we were in 2019, which is exciting.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to unfinished business. First item is discussion action on the community service waiver. Should we motion to approve now and then discuss after?
What are we approving?
Whether or not we're going to use it, I thought.
It says a motion to approve or reject.
Yeah, so we have that.
It's usually moved to approve, but we could also move to
Right.
reject.
Could we get the info on the, if other libraries use waivers or the possibility of,
Yeah.
can we get that yet?
Yep, do we have to make the motion first, or can
I'll move to approve the waiver form to get it on the floor for discussion.
I'll
second.
Thank you, Mary. All right, discussion.
Okay. So in answer to your question, Phyllis, yes, Brittany did reach out through the library listservs to see if any other libraries in the system or elsewhere were using waivers. She only got 3 or 4 responses out of the 24 libraries. So not a huge amount saying that they do, though it's possible, people just didn't respond. But yeah, only 3 or 4 saying that they do for sure use them at their library. Some other information on that, just for if other libraries use them, and then the possibility of the shortened waiver or the follow-up on the city attorney. So she also did reach out to the city attorney to talk about it. The city uses the waiver in its long form for its volunteers, and the legal perspective is that they can be valuable, and many have held up in courts, and courts haven't said not to. But the attorney's recommendation was to use it in its full form or not, which is why it was written as to approve or reject. Is the attorney said when you start to trim things out, it waters it down and can make it less effective in court. So if you're going to use it, you want to use it in the full form.
I'd like to share with you all that Brittany and I had talked about this a little bit at a past meeting, but I did reach out to her in March with an email, and I told her I wanted clarification from the attorney. I asked her about the legislation that I was reading online, specifically Wisconsin State Law 893.80. I had talked to her about the law. And I said, if I am correct, and if it's the correct state statute, I interpreted it as saying, quote, a volunteer has 6 months from date of incident to bring forth litigation. I asked, is the cap $50,000? Am I correct that the person could not pursue punitive damages? I asked how much our insurance policy covers. And I just said I would be very against asking the Friends to sign such a waiver, but I wasn't sure how comfortable the board would be opening up ourselves to a potential 6-month window of liability for up to $50,000, not knowing what our insurance policy would cover, if I was even interpreting the correct state statute. So I had hoped for a little more clarification from the city attorney on. And I do like even though I don't have an exact answer to that question, I like the all or nothing response where you can't cherry pick which part of the waiver we're going to ask people to sign. And if we do this, I don't think it's real nice to ask the Friends to do it. So are we going to cherry pick who we ask to do it?
I would say no.
Well, I would think it would be all or nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And is there, does the Friends have an aversion to signing a waiver for liability? I mean, has anybody talked to them about this, or has anybody from the Friends group come forward to say, well, you're gonna, this is kind of like a poke in the head. Why are you doing this to us? Have we had that conversation with anybody?
Not that.
I'm just so grateful to them. I would hate to come and say, oh, by the way, here's a waiver.
I mean, I will say the waivers are pretty standard when you do volunteer work for municipalities. I mean, you got to sign them, because the community doesn't want to take that potential risk when you're volunteering. And there are certain protections under the law for volunteers and non-negligent acts and all the rest of that kind of stuff. I don't know what the city's existing policy is for the insurance. The standard policy from the League of Municipalities is pretty generous when it comes to covering volunteers for acts. But it wouldn't hurt to have the city attorney answer those specific questions in a letter to the board. If everybody's comfortable with that, just to clarify what that all is. Because those are great specific questions.
Yeah, I tried to go to the Wisconsin state statutes to look up what the window would be, how much, what types of monies they could attempt to recover legally, then what does our insurance cover, and do we just feel comfortable as a board opening ourselves up to X month window of
Yeah, I mean, the law is pretty clear that, they're not entitled to workers' comp, coverage or any of that. The city may have the medical rider for, accidental injury that may cover a volunteer to a certain dollar amount. It's usually $10,000 for medical expense, but I don't know what the city's riders are for that.
What about a patron who comes and slips on the ice or trips over some cord or, is that
Yeah, they have
different?
to prove negligence on the city's part for that. So, they may be entitled to medical to a certain level based on that. I mean, it's like a trip and fall on a sidewalk. We had one this last winter in Lake Geneva. Medical's covered up to $10,000 for that under the police insurance policy. So, but you have to prove a whole bunch of things to be able to do that.
I just feel like people are pretty used to signing waivers anyways. I
Yeah.
go to the trampoline park with my kid, you gotta sign a
Right.
waiver.
Right.
I really don't think it's
To the
that
point where they
big of
just sign it
a
without
ask.
reading it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we're kinda covered a little bit, so
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with it.
Speaking of kids, that is a question we have a number of like junior honor society volunteers and things, and then of course also the ones that we've taken in the past from the port. So would a parent have to be present to sign the waiver the first time that they would come in to volunteer? Is that how?
I would think so.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's why there's a separate line on here for guardian
For the
signature.
guardian signature,
Yeah.
yep, we just wanted to, that was
Yeah.
just something Brittany and I were talking about is would we have something, because some of the volunteers can drive themselves, so, and it can be hard for parents like to come in, so we had said like, is there a way to have it online and stuff, but I don't think there would be a way then to ensure that you're getting the guardian signature, so that would probably have to be.
Yeah, you don't want the hall
I
pass.
don't think it has to be witnessed though. I think
No.
they just have to fill it out.
They have to fill it out and
Just
sign
have to
it.
fill it out, so
Do
like
you
if
have
they
a
had
scout
this.
troop?
Yeah, no, I mean, if they just took this home and had it filled out and when they
Brought
come
it
in and
back,
do the
yeah.
same.
So that is
that's good.
something we could put on our website and say, if you're interested, we can do this, and we wouldn't need to verify that
They
the
have to turn
parents
it
have
in.
signed or anything. Okay,
I mean, if there's a concern by staff that they think it's not done appropriately, that's what the phone number should
Contact.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
contact
Okay.
and verify.
I should say like a scout troop that's coming to paint the
Right.
garbage thing, whatever
Yeah.
they did. I would expect the scout leaders to be able to collect these ahead of time and give them when they come.
Yes,
And
yes.
have them all signed here, I don't know.
Yeah.
I did have a question on the date of birth, on the actual info section, page 19. Background checks will be conducted if the volunteer will be working with children. What about like a scout troop? So we're not background checking the scout leaders.
Well, Girl Scouts does.
I know they do, but
So
this says we will.
Anything if a volunteer comes and if they're volunteering like during a children's event that the library is putting on, not if they're bringing your own.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering, if does it need more clarification, or is that?
Do the library staff have to go through that, working with children?
Background
There's a-
Background checks, I mean, the city does do
Yeah.
background
Yeah.
checks when
Okay.
people are hired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're pretty intentional.
At our church, we have to go through a program,
We do.
yeah.
a specific program if you're
Yes.
dealing with children every 5 years.
Mhm.
So I wondered if that was
It's
just.
CCAP or it's something with the, not CCAP, that's an online thing that you can check people on. But it's called
Yeah, they-
Seas training.
something like
Yeah.
that. St. Leonard's
And they
does
do,
all
and
to
they,
it.
they do the background check and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a service.
Not to go off on too much of a segue, but as much as we think about background checks specifically geared to protect children, if you're working in the public and dealing with any vulnerable population,
Right.
especially senior citizens, I'd like to make sure you're checking for elder abuse too on that list.
Yep, we have that part of our.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because it's vulnerable population, it's not
Okay.
by age, is when you want to do that. But I don't know that, we only state here that it would be volunteers working with children. It doesn't say
Yeah.
that it's with other populations.
True, though I think that I absolutely understand, elder abuse and things like that. I think the difference being in public sphere versus in a home setting is that when we have volunteers coming in, number one, the type of volunteer work that we're having people do, whether it's a troop where they're painting the fence or it's, the friends helping an event, people aren't really one-on-one in an area where I still understand the importance for children, but where they're not being monitored by other staff that's in the building, other volunteers, the types of things that we're having them do, especially when we're talking, I think this started with the court-appointed volunteer hours. We're having them dust shelves, we're having them staple booklets or fold the monthly calendars. They're not doing things generally that they're even in a program or involved in things. There might be something on the pre-programming side. We have some wonderful young volunteers who come in every month to take apart the Lego creations and sort out all the Legos into that. But even then, it's the volunteers in a room and they're being supervised, offhand by staff, but there are no kids present in the room at the time aside from those groups of volunteers. So I do understand the concern with that, but I wonder if the nature of the type of work that we're doing would mean that that would be less important. I do wonder in regards to the Friends, if we're saying they'll be checked for volunteers that will be working with children at events like our Santa event where they're selling the books and doing the bake sale and things like that, are we saying that all of the Friends have to do a background check for that? I think to Dave's point, that might be something, if this is something the board would like to move forward with, that we would just want to make them aware of that was going to be
Dave, does the city have Raptor?
I don't know.
Oh, I mean, if we are looking at a point where we're like, have a lot of volunteers coming, we might want to look at getting Raptor, where you just get the person's ID, you stick it through the thing, like we have at the school district, where we check everybody that's coming into our schools.
Yeah, I don't
maybe
know if
that's
they
something
use that.
I
don't know if they use that or not.
Yeah.
Kate would be the one to find out that from, because if she's, she'd be the one doing the background checks and stuff like that for stuff like this, because it wouldn't go to the police department.
Right. I don't know what the cost is on the Raptor thing, but
I've never used it. We've always used the state service for that. It's $5 a check.
Okay.
Do we have a lot of people who volunteer? I mean, I know the Friends is a big group.
The Friends, and I would say we have a good number of volunteers, particularly this time of year with the summer reading prep, and the number of, it's hard for people with the court, a lot of them, again, it's not violent crimes or things, it's vaping misdemeanors and things, but it can be hard to find places that juveniles are allowed to volunteer at. And so I think Brittany tried to keep an opportunity for that if possible, because she recognized that could be difficult for them. So I don't have an exact number for that, but I do know, as I mentioned, at least 3 regular Lego volunteers, and then I have seen an additional 4 to 5 volunteers of just the people in the community, like young kids, again, stapling booklets, things like that, who have come in and approached and said, like, I'm looking for volunteer time, or I just love the library, and things like that. So I could certainly reach out to the staff. Courtney schedules a lot of that since she does the coupons for the summer reading, and also helps with the Lego Club volunteers. I could look at that and try to see if we have a record of how many volunteers it would be for a gauge, but even for the Friends board, we have like regular volunteers who, come in every month. There's probably about 9-ish of those that do it on a regular basis, but for the garden walk, they recruit for hosts and things like that. And so then you're talking about, I think roughly 25 people is what I have for name badges for that event.
But that's
volunteer.
not an event that we're running, that's a...
If you're saying, though, that this, I guess that would be an important point of clarification, is that when are we using this? Because the Friends garden walk is off-site for those hosts and volunteers and things like that. but the event as a whole is done in partnership with the library. We promote it, we give them the rooms and things like that. So even if those volunteers, like a garden greeter, isn't coming here to the library, I don't know if you want that included in what counts as a volunteer.
I think that would be a great question for the city attorney, because
Sure.
typically, if you're the sponsor of the event, you're the one holding the liability. And everybody else, is kind of on their own. So if the friends are sponsoring the event, it would fall under their insurance, not the city's insurance, so it'd be their liability.
Oh, okay.
So, it may be, that we're a partner with them, but it's not our event. We're just assisting them because of the partnership. So it may just be a semantic thing when it's set up. But that's a question I think the city attorney should answer. Because otherwise, every time the friends do any kind of a thing, you'd be going through this all over again.
Mm-hmm. Well, but then I'm also wondering for the other Friends events, or just the Friends volunteers in general, because the Friends do sponsor most of our programs and things like that. So which...
But are they sponsoring them and running them, or are they just giving us cash?
More the second one.
They run
Yeah,
theirs.
if they're giving us cash, it's our event.
It's our event, okay.
We're owning it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's us. Yeah, they give us money for projects, or summer reading programs or everything else. They're our programs, they're just giving us money. But in this particular case, if they're actually running the event and doing all the work and all the rest of that, then it would fall to them.
So the Santa event, would that...
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. That's a great attorney question.
Well, okay. So yes, if there's further follow-up that you want me to do on this, of course, I am willing. So if you would like those questions answered, if you could send me that email that I could send to him, I think that would be good. And Dave, you had said what you would like is a formal letter from the attorney.
I think some kind of a memo from the city attorney, just giving us some guidance.
Guidance.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And then is this good indefinitely, or is it an annual thing they have to re-sign?
I
I don't see anything about a time limit on this. I would have hoped it would be indefinite. We wouldn't have to. they wouldn't
have to do this
keep
every
renewing
time
it.
somebody.
But then your library staff is going to have to figure out a database to keep these right, to know who already
has signed
has
it,
one
who
and
hasn't.
who doesn't,
Yep.
and then
Yes.
who's meeting with these groups before they do their work to make sure everybody has a signed form, if it's a scout troop or whatever.
This seems like a
Like,
lot of work.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. It is a lot of work, but
It's not like
Yeah,
that's
and then-
like good forever.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like,
right.
usually if you do it like every 5 years, you can
And
do one for like.
if they turn it in when they arrive to do their volunteer work, when is the background check going to be done?
Yeah.
Exactly. And who's doing that?
And I feel like this
Right.
whole conversation started because Brittany had come to us and had the idea to help these young people who were going through the court system fulfill their volunteer hours. And I think as a group, we had started asking questions, and one thing led to another, and now we've got this much bigger conversation.
I think that it also was stemming from that it's always been minors and it's always been minor offenses. And she wanted to do some protections in case that changed in the future.
So if somebody else who was assigned community service wanted to come to the library, an adult offender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gotcha. I don't-
And they don't have this as an online form? Like where you do have a database where there's names of, do you know if this is online at all?
Well, right now we don't use.
No, for the cities, right?
For the city, I'm sorry, I don't know offhand if they have
I would
it
ask.
online or in what circumstances they
They
use
require
it.
it for who's maintaining the database. for
Yeah,
$100.
To be honest with you, we are all volunteers. I never signed this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I'm going to fall out of my chair and injure myself, but
You're actually covered under a different part of the insurance policy because you're a board member. So,
but technically we never signed a waiver,
no,
like for photos and stuff like that.
but you signed your own.
Yes, I did. I don't think it was in there though.
So if
Nope.
people taken a step back to, do we want this or do we not want this?
I think I want to
Or do
table
you
it.
want the
I want to
info
table
from
it for a
the
month.
attorney first?
And get the answers and then
Mhm.
revisit
Okay,
it.
I think that's good. Just wanted to ask.
But we have to like vote on the motion.
Oh, you can table the motion. You can set the motion on the table.
Okay, you could do that.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, you can make a motion.
Okay,
to
I'll
table.
motion to table the, what do we call this? Background community service waiver approval.
I second.
Thank you, Carrie. All those in favor of tabling until next month? Say
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Okay.
Am I allowed to ask anything about that now that that's been tabled? But not to like bring it back to the floor, but I'm just wondering, with that, would you want me to ask or look into any, like when you were saying it's generally been minors for minor offenses, do you want me to ask about if there would be any benefit to the board deciding on guidelines if the concern was that, well, what if it's an adult who comes in and we didn't feel comfortable with that, but having some kind of volunteer policy or something put forth by the board that says basically who's eligible to volunteer, and maybe there is no benefit, but that might be something next month to consider as well, is if depending on what these answers are, it feels like it's too restrictive in that way, would there be a different way to kind of think about those protections, going a different avenue?
You could, if you're talking to the city, phrase it with the fact that the Park and Rec Department has volunteers galore with kids. That, what do they do?
Sure.
You know, because to be honest with you, I don't think I signed a waiver when I was doing the basketball coaching for, you know, for the Park and Rec Department either.
Yeah, I think they do
So-
now. I think they have to.
Do they know?
think-
I mean, that was a while ago that I used to coach.
They have a lot of kids running the rec, helping run the rec program.
Right.
They
Oh, yeah.
do summer, so do they have?
Well, the
one
summer help
too?
would all get background.
Sign a thing,
Oh.
okay. Even if they're 12.
Well, it's
They
illegal for
might.
someone that age to sign.
That's what I'm saying, I don't know what
Yeah,
they do.
I would
But
Yeah.
yeah, the Park and Rec has got to be somewhat similar to what
work
we're
at a
doing.
program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Get background.
I hate that's the world that we live in, but
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, it is unfortunate.
Whether it's crimes against children or financial crimes or vulnerable adults, it just happens all the time.
All right, did you set then? I know that's a lot of to-dos for you.
No, I think that I've got it. I'm going
All right.
to ask the city or the attorney about a memo or a letter, something to do it. We're going to determine what would count as an event based off of who's sponsoring, and ask him about that, how the background checks are conducted, what kind of system or process would that involve, and how long would it take, and then what does Parks and Rec do? Was there anything else and your questions about the state statutes?
And I forwarded that email to you.
Thank you.
I think and how long it's eligible for.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
How
How long is
long
good for?
eligible?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if it's online.
Yeah.
Maybe not mine. Her.
Bringing it into the millennial.
Yeah. Okay.
And meanwhile, I can ask the school board, or Jeremiah, how much Raptor costs, because maybe it's a minimal cost and you can
Mhm.
just do that.
I doubt it.
I doubt it, but I'm gonna try and ask.
All right, next item, just for discussion action, ratification of the library board monthly meeting date and time. Can I get a motion to approve, and then we'll discuss, and then,
I move to approve ratifying library board meeting date and time.
I second.
thank you again, Carrie. All right, discussion. I think this, we're on page 20. So last month, we discussed the date and time. Traditionally, it's always, well, since I've been on here 4 years, it's been the third Tuesday of the month at 5 p.m. We moved this month to the third Wednesday at 5:30. Did this work well for people? I mean, this is a full house. That's
We're all
pretty
here.
good. It hasn't happened a whole, I mean, you know, it doesn't happen every month. does this work, and do we want to move officially to the third Wednesday of each month at 5:30 for the rest of the year? I mean, the year, and then next year at the annual meeting, revisit if we want to change it or keep it?
Was there a reason we moved from Tuesday to Wednesday?
There's availability for people.
I think it was just me, and I don't have that conflict anymore. Because TISA moved it to the second Tuesday of the month now. So I don't have a conflict on Tuesdays.
Oh, okay.
So, and if you wanted to move it back to 5:30, if that was the issue on Tuesday, we could go back to Tuesday. We could stay with what we have, but maybe move the time back.
Well, it was based on some of the city
Well, I think
meetings too, right? Like the
No.
timing, are those on Tuesdays more?
No.
We're
But
second
different
and fourth
Tuesdays.
Tuesday.
Okay.
But
So the third
So third
Tuesday
Tuesday
is
would still
fine,
work.
yeah.
I think sometimes the city does have, I remember there being a conflict, like, I remember an alderman leaving partway through certain months.
They go to a planning commission meeting, because our planning commission's still on. First and third.
Planning commission might be.
First and third, and council still second and fourth.
I'm not exactly sure on the planning commission, but
That's why you're here.
That's probably why.
trying to
wouldn't
keep
be
the
on the
meetings I have to
committee,
go
right?
to straight.
What about your conflict, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be an
Tuesday.
issue for me anymore because it looks like I'm going to be resigning, so.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry to say, I was going to say that, leave that to the end, but yes, I'm probably going to have to resign.
Oh,
because
from
of my-
here?
From this board, because of my position in Lake Geneva, so.
Period, you mean? No night would work out there anymore?
Yeah. It's more, I have a question to the WCMA, which is the City Managers Association, because we have specific rules for participating in government activities outside the community where you work. And I don't know, because this is a library board, if that's a problem, but I'm working on that, so. But I've already told the mayor that I probably will have to resign, because I think that's the rule, but I'm asking.
Okay.
So Kristen, what about time-wise, 5:30? Is 6 better? I know most meetings are at 5 for city, but
I mean,
what would work better for you?
the later the better, but I don't want to move the whole board just because of me. I can call when I'm driving here if I can't get here by 5:30.
It's definitely better than 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Anybody have a
possible.
problem with 6?
Well,
Change it?
because sometimes if
You
it
might-
goes late with kids, I know you have kids too, like it just,
I think if you called in by 5:30,
Yeah.
and then you walked in at 6 or whatever it was, that would be fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
the
think that would be
5:30
fine.
was good.
It's
That
worked
half
before.
hour isn't such a big deal.
Yeah,
Sometimes
so
that whole hour
I
though with
don't have
bedtime
the
and
conflict.
stuff.
Just don't put your
Yeah.
video on. so you
Hard
can
getting
screen.
on with.
Well, and I don't want to make it all about me
Yeah.
either and my kids,
Call
but,
in.
just.
We watch it too.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
six at
fine.
5:30?
At my house.
Yeah.
Good for you.
They're getting a little older now, so.
Yeah. So who,
So
is Tuesdays better than Wednesdays?
5:30?
Yeah,
So the third Tuesday, we're just shifting to 5:30.
It would be amazing if
Yeah.
it works for everybody.
Okay. So next month, we'll do the third Tuesday. I don't know, I do have a calendar in front of me, but,
July
at 5:30.
22nd.
July 22nd. Thank you.
So earlier in the meeting, we said, well, Wednesday, July 16th is the next board meeting.
So-
Is that
So it'd be the 15th.
15th?
Oh, 15.
Oh, is that the third Tuesday
Oh,
now?
I missed
Oh,
the
they're
first.
different.
No, because,
Yeah, it's the 15th.
yeah, that's right. Month starts on a Tuesday.
Oh, it
Yeah,
does.
the month starts on a Tuesday, so
I'm looking at
another
the
weird
calendar
one.
and there's no writing on that.
Okay,
It's the
so
earliest it
next
could ever
month,
be.
we're gonna meet, the third Tuesday, which is July 15th at 5:30, and go on.
I'm sorry, there will be, I will have some conflict, but it'll be okay. It's 3 out of 12.
It's 3. But that's 3 months.
Yeah, sorry.
Is
I'm
Wednesdays
sorry.
worse than Tuesdays? Because, I mean, we're all here, or is that a problem?
What, Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Not a problem for me.
Appreciate that,
Chris has
Phyllis.
already got it typed in for Tuesday.
I don't have a super preference, but if there's still gonna be a conflict for a few months
I
for
don't
Tracy
care.
out of the year, could we just move it to Wednesday?
I don't think.
Or does that not work for everyone?
I'd be fine with Wednesday.
Wednesday is a maybe for me. It'll work probably most of the time, but I also have volleyball on Wednesdays. Don't plan on missing
Depending
it.
on when your game is.
Exactly. Yeah, if it's a late
You
game.
play or
we
you
do
coach?
Play.
Oh, okay. So you gotta be there. So even if you're coaching.
So how about,
I do.
I feel like you look familiar.
Oh.
On Wednesdays, I play on Tuesdays now, I used to play Wednesdays.
Yeah, we used to play Tuesdays, we play Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays at Kelly's.
Does
As
Wednesday
long
work
as-
for you?
On Mondays and Wednesdays, I drive here from Oconomowoc. It took me over an hour to get here tonight.
Oh,
On
wow.
Tuesdays, I work in Pewaukee. I can get here a little bit
Yeah.
sooner. Wednesdays are not ideal. But if it doesn't work for me, it's okay. My tenure may be over with the library board. It's what, 2 years?
3.
3?
Three.
Yeah. So I do the best I can. And if it's just a conflict moving forward, then we might find someone who might have a better schedule that can offer their time to the library board.
Okay.
But Wednesdays are
I
not.
don't have a preference. I'm just more
And I live really close by, but Mondays and Wednesdays I'm in Oconomowoc, so it's tough.
You can go back
Do you
to the
care?
Tuesday. No, I mean, you know me, I'm multitasking at all times, but.
we're used to seeing you on the videos anyhow.
All right, so
I'm always doing something.
I'll do the best I can.
But
I can.
You can stay with the Tuesdays. It's 3 Tuesdays out of the whole time. And maybe I just alter. Maybe.
and we can reevaluate next year, because we're supposed to look at this annually, so.
And
Next year we'll talk
and
about it,
that's
yeah.
why I always was able to kind of pull it off a little bit because my meeting started at 6.
That's right.
And when
that's
we were
why-
at 5, I could still
At least
squeeze
get most
it
of
in.
an hour,
And,
yeah.
yeah. So,
So is this meeting that you're doing also at 6
which,
on Tuesdays?
the CISA ones, yeah, they are at 6. Mhm.
So now we would have 30 minutes with you, or
True.
just under, instead of an hour.
But it's only
Yeah.
3 months. It
Yeah.
used to be
Yeah.
every month,
It was
Yeah.
every month.
so now it's
It was terrible.
better.
I was like,
Oh.
how is it possibility that you would be
Right,
at the
right.
exact- But we were at 5 and they were at 6 and
You made it work.
for 6 years.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, because I've been on CISA, well, actually 7 years now. So, it's all
It's
good.
only 3 times a year.
Yeah,
It's gotta be
right.
7 years, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so third Tuesdays, everybody's good, 5:30. Okay, so can we get a motion no, we already have the motion. Everybody who
Well,
approved,
oh yeah, that's the time too.
yeah, everybody who approves moving our library board meetings to the third Tuesday of the month at 5:30, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes.
Because this wasn't the motion that was, because this is Wednesday.
Yep,
I think we have to like,
should have amended the motion.
yeah, amended the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Well, should we go back and do that?
we can do that. I recommend to amend the motion of the background on ratifying the library board monthly meeting date and time to the third Tuesday of the month at 5:30 instead of the Wednesday.
Somebody second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All right, revised motion passes. For the third
We can
Tuesday.
either do that or, yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay?
Then you go.
Yeah, you can.
I think so. Because the first, when it's revised, we don't have to record that it was done, right? We just do that. Yep, I got it.
All right, next order, moving on to new business, discussion, presidential appointments for strategic planning committee and personnel committee. So the background is on page 21. The president shall appoint all committees, 3 trustees to the strategic planning committee and personnel committee, 3 trustees, although I think in the prior years we've done 2, and we haven't had enough people, then there's not that much that they do. There's no vote because I get to appoint people, but I do want your input because I am not that much of a dictator. So I'm totally kidding. I'm sorry. I know this is a formal board meeting. Details about each committee can be found in Article 5, Section 1 of the Muskego Public Library bylaws. I'm not going to read those out loud since it's right here. The Strategic Planning Committee typically meets once a year around November, unless it's a strategic planning year, which we won't have again for another 2 years till 2027. So we have a little break before we have to do a whole new strategic plan. And the Personnel Committee typically meets twice a year around November and December. Do they know? I thought it was just once, but I could be wrong. I don't remember. So is anybody who's currently on the strategic planning?
Me and Phyllis
Yeah.
and Kristen.
Okay. Does anybody else want to join? Do the three of you want to continue? Maybe we'll just start with that discussion.
I would be happy to continue.
I'd be happy to continue.
I would be happy to continue.
Excellent. Is anybody else interested in joining? No. Okay. No cage match. All right, then. Okay. What about the Personnel Committee? I think it was you and me, right?
Yeah.
You want to do it? I know you've been trying to get off for years.
I have. Like the thing.
Yeah.
I think we should let the new people have it. That's an easy one. That's just evaluating directors. She'll only be
That's
there.
true. Not a whole lot.
Yeah. I think she won't be
Now,
here that
strategic
long.
planning has more longer extra
Yeah.
meeting and input and things. So, anybody else interested in doing Personnel Committee? I mean, I'll stay on it if nobody else will. It's fine. Going? Anybody?
On your newbies.
Yeah.
Get your feet wet.
Barb wants a break. We don't even have to talk until November. And even then, we've mostly handled it by email. I don't even think we met anybody
No,
once.
and I did it last year.
Yeah.
November when?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, you did.
I thought you were.
It was very memorable,
I
right?
thought you were.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either. I always laugh about
I
Barb.
always try and make it simple.
Yeah.
But I know we want to do it again.
But
But it will be
Who's
short.
not here?
I know, that's why I did it last time.
You weren't here, you're on.
What committee was that? We appointed Dave and Phyllis because you weren't here that one meeting. So we're
Oh,
like,
that
okay,
was-
they get it.
That was for the nominating
Yeah.
committee.
Oh,
That was the
that's right.
nominating committee,
Okay.
I was gone meeting.
It was easy.
That was easy.
Yeah, I
I'll-
like that committee.
I'll do it if I'm still here.
Okay.
And if I'm not here, you give it to the new person.
There you go.
Okay.
We are not letting you go.
Okay.
Forget it, you're not going anywhere.
Not if you can help it.
But we also don't want you to get fired from your job
I
either, so.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Me too.
You have to do the evaluation for the director. There may be we don't know.
That's true.
There may, you're starting from
It'll be a
scratch
couple months.
because you can't say, well, this
There'll be
is how
more
you
goal,
did it last.
in November, it'll be more
Goals.
about goal setting than it will
Right,
be about
yeah, you
evaluating.
kind of have
That's
to
true.
make goals maybe this year.
Yep.
Oh, Barb, you still want to serve?
Sure.
All right.
Yay!
and Barb. All right. So do I officially appoint? Like
Sure,
say the words?
just tell us.
Okay. So I officially appoint Carrie, Kristen, and Phyllis to the Strategic Planning Committee, and Barb and myself to the Personnel Committee. Right? Yeah. Yep.
I'm here to help if you need anything.
Okay. And did you want to be
I was
third
gonna
on the
say,
Personnel
you
Committee?
could put me on the personnel committee, and
Okay,
if I'm
I didn't
here,
know
I'll
if you
do
were
it,
serious
if I'm
or
not,
not.
I'm
Okay.
not.
All right, then the three of us will serve, Barb, myself, and Dave will serve on the Personnel Committee. Thank you, everyone. And that wasn't an action, we don't have to vote, right? 'Cause I just-
Nope.
You're in.
It was just my-
That was that dictator part you were talking about.
I know.
Yeah.
Terrible.
She's
All right, so next item is discussion of the 5-year capital budget plan review, our first read. 5-year 2026 through 2030, and I believe it starts on page 22. No, absolutely, thank you for coming. We still have a quorum, so we're good. Bye. I think you have to write that down, right, Sam, that you have?
Yep, 646.
Is this yours, Sam, or did you want
This-
to talk?
Well, I'm certainly ready to, unless
Okay, good.
you're-
I thought it was you, but
Yeah.
I didn't know.
No, unless you want to take the wheel, but no, I can certainly talk. So yes, well, capital projects, I think we all know, are funded by the city and are typically larger scale projects that are new, an improvement, or like big maintenance projects on the city, or on the facility. And the city requests a 5-year plan so that they know what's in the pipeline and they can start to plan for future projects and things. And so things we've done in the past, then the carpeting and the children's area renovation, and of course the parking lot that's happening right now. And we are entering a phase based on the age of the building where the projects are going to be switching from things in the past, like when we did the kids area, we got the new furniture, they were more interior things. Now we're looking at exterior and big maintenance projects to preserve the facility and maintain the asset and protect it from damage and things. And there is a schedule on the next page, and I wanted to call out for those who have been serving on the board for a while that what you're seeing in this plan is probably going to look a little bit different than what it's looked like in previous years, what the projections were going to be. And in truth, it looks different even than when Brittany left 3 weeks ago. And the reason for that is that things change as we get more information and things. And so a couple of really big things have happened since she had left. Number one is we'll see, so scaling back and looking at this plan, something that had been previously on the plan is the condensing units. We know the air handlers that control the airflow of the building need to be replaced because they're coming up on their end of life. And much like we did with the parking lot and the roof and other projects that we've done in the past, we start that process very early. So even though they were slated for later years, we had our first look where the consultants came out and took a look at the machines to see how they were operating, and then also, kind of initial thoughts on what it would cost to replace them. And that project is going to be a lot more expensive than initially anticipated because building codes have changed since the building was first built, and the refrigerant used in the system right now no longer meets the standards.
Right.
So instead of just replacing the air controllers that blow the air, we also have to replace the coolant and everything in that unit. So that stretched that project from being a 1-year capital request to being a 2-year request. So you'll see that that is slated in 2028 and 2029, the first being the bigger chunk when we take out the first controller that's back here that controls the main part of the building and replacing that and that refrigerant and everything. And then the second year doing the controller that's in the front part of the building that does the meeting rooms. So that was one big change that happened very shortly after she left. And then the other thing that happened was that before she had left, Brittany had sent her projected timeline to the city maintenance and public works department to take a look at and make sure, since they're the buildings experts, what does this look like? Does this seem right? And the initial idea had been that, I know we've been hearing a bunch about the roof and the importance of replacing the roof, and so the idea had been that next year we would request the roof. When we got the information back from the city maintenance, their recommendation was actually that we do the parking lot, the final phase of that next year, and push the roof off for another year. And the reason for that is that, of course, initially the goal was to do the entire parking lot at once. It all needs to be addressed, but also if we stagger those projects too much, in another 25 years, when we need our next parking lot, there's going to be sections that are in very different condition. If we end up being like, well, we go for the roof and then we go for the light poles and then the condensing units and things like that, and we push the parking lot out several years, then you have the parking lot that's 20 years old and 15 years old and could be in different condition, and then it might be problematic for how those parts of the lot are connected and also for securing the funding at that point when you have these different things. So their recommendation was that we try to go for phase 1 of the parking lot and push the roof off for another year. And so there are some things, if the board decides that's the direction that they would like to recommend and to go, that the maintenance staff have said that they can do to kind of address some of the concerns with the roof is they could clean out, because there's a lot of those runoff granules in the gutters. They can do that. They can replace some shingling in spots on the roof to kind of reinforce some areas, and possibly look at doing sealant in the cracks in the gutters, again, to, kind of extend us for that next year. But that was their recommendation based off of what they were seeing. So the proposed timeline based off of their feedback is that the parking lot phase 1, and I did bring visuals in case anyone needed a refresher. I would be happy to pass those around for the parts of the lot. So there's a sheet that shows what's being done this year, the phase 2 and 3, and then phase 1 being that last section of the parking lot on the side of the building that has our handicap parking and the main also access and where the book drop is, a lot of cars stopping over there. So I can pass those around if people just need a refresher on the section that we're talking about. But so going for that section of the lot in 2026, the roof in 2027, those air handlers based on their end of year life for 2028 and 2029, since that will be that 2-year project, and then addressing the light poles and the key card access in 2030. And so I know the light poles too have been something we've been concerned and thinking about, and so it is something that they would continue to monitor to make sure that structurally they're not in danger of falling over. But presently the concern isn't that the poles are going to fall over and hit someone, it's just that the internal mechanics might fail, which of course is not ideal to have dark spots in the parking lot.
And they look gross.
Right, but there might be other temporary lighting we could put in or something to get by until that was addressed. So that was the city's, the maintenance department of the city's recommended.
I still don't know why we can't just paint those light poles for now, so it looks.
Yeah, I don't understand why you
understand
can't
why-
just spray paint that bad boys
Right.
and make them look good for a couple
Yeah,
years.
exactly. What is?
Just tape off at
Let's do it.
tape off 5 feet high and just go.
Right.
But
Put
what
some
about-
Rust-Oleum on there and you'll
Yeah,
go.
right.
For real.
It'll look better than it does now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look, didn't she say though there was internal?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is.
Right, but
Yeah.
that's why we still need to replace them all.
We
I mean,
do.
for a
Right.
short-term cosmetic fix.
But if we can't do it
But
for
that's
5
5
years.
years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't
I'm
wanna
We
look
saying.
at
don't have
ugly
to take
poles
them
for 5
down to
years.
paint them. We can just paint them while they're standing there.
Right, you just leave them up there.
Because I wouldn't want to touch them in case it breaks.
Exactly.
We can get some volunteers. That we
But
can
no,
and
no,
run
no,
a background check on them.
Or the waivers and that.
Right.
You make sure they're not doing anything with poles.
I thought we talked about that. I thought we talked about painting them.
We did, and they didn't, I know Public Works didn't want to do it.
Oh,
Right.
is that what it was?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe something we can address with the new director and say, hey, we need to talk to Ryan and
Yeah,
say, come on, man,
I think so.
we gotta do something. You
Yeah,
look nasty. I mean, and some of the poles are rusty higher up.
yeah,
And we're just gonna have to live with that, but at least the
Yeah.
part you're staring at all the time.
right, right.
The first 5 feet would be nice.
It's unfortunate that there is the problem internally, because what the city did with theirs, they look nice.
Mhm.
Yes, they do.
They
Yeah.
do. So it's unfortunate that we can't do the same as them, but I guess.
Ours are older than
Yeah,
what the city
they are.
had.
Yeah.
And that's why.
No, yeah, those were put in and like 2 years later, they were looking like they, yeah. And then, were they under warranty?
Yeah, I remember fighting about it with the contractor
Yeah.
because we didn't get the poles we specified.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to be aluminum, not steel.
Got it.
So you said maintenance would be willing to work on the roof a little bit here and there. Would that come out of our budget still?
It would. So
Okay.
Clayton was going to get me some information on what those kind of things would cost, because it was something he said that we could have done, but he would probably not be the one going up on the roof to install the shingle. So it would be something that we would have to get an estimate of what that cost
Yeah, so there's some
would
specific
be.
companies out there that'll.
Oh,
do
so
the
it would be
roof.
like a contractor.
It'd be a
Yeah.
contractor, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't.
So we would have to pay for materials and time and
Mhm.
the people doing it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was
But
just
it shouldn't be
curious.
obscene.
Hopefully not. It's a huge roof
We're
though.
doing just fine. But, to the roof question, Sam,
Yeah.
is this number, the 450, is that shingle and flat?
Yes.
So it's both, and we have a quote or something?
Yes.
If that's a realistic number?
Yes. So.
Because I know that when we first looked at it a year ago, I think Brittany had 150 in there, and I'm like, what are we getting for that?
Yeah. So
So,
if
I
we're
thought it
going
was
to
more,
the.
I thought it was more like 200.
yeah, but it was like.
But yeah,
it was
it's a lot
really low.
less. But it was more in line with what she was expecting for the parking lot, I thought.
Could be.
Yes. So that is something that I have, is if you wanted to see those estimates to see where those numbers were coming from. But yeah, she did get 3 estimates, and
Okay.
then we took those numbers based on, like a mid-grade shingle, the flat, and the gutters, because all of it would need to be addressed
Mhm.
at the same time. And then this 450 is taking that number plus inflation from this quote by extending it for another year.
What number did she use for inflation? Is it 5 or 10%?
I do not know off of the top of my head,
Okay.
but I
That's all right.
believe it was the 10%. I think the parking lot. I think
Yeah.
the erring on the side
A
of
little
caution.
conservatism in estimating would do that.
Yes, because I do know for the parking lot reconstruction, because of course we know for that the bids came in higher, but because it was broken out in those 3 phases for the bid this year, we have the numbers of what they said it would cost, and so that number, this 150, that's 10% higher. So I'm thinking that they used the same. She and Michelle.
Philosophy, yeah.
Yes, for those as well. But certainly something I could follow up on if you would like to.
That's okay, I mean, we've got 2 years on that, and we'll look at it again next year and readjust.
I have a question on the parking lot. We've got 3 phases.
Yeah.
Are we doing 1 and 2?
No,
We're
1 and
doing
3.
2 and 3.
That page, both sides we're doing this year. The page where it's just one side, that's for next year.
So this one and this one are being done this year, and this one
Phase 1.
is
And
gonna
next
be.
year.
Right, it's the entrance drive that's being done in the second year?
Yep, so
Front
if you
part.
were driving into the parking lot, driving straight in from Janesville Road, all along the right-hand side, up through the Parkland exit would be what's being addressed this year,
And widening the
and widening the entrance.
which is the biggest
And
thing.
so
that needs to-
phase
One of the
1
biggest
of the project, the part that's not being done this year, is that other part on the left, that kind of C shape that loops around on the side, so extending from that crosswalk over by the book drop, past the accessible parking lot, our parking spaces towards the marquee sign. That side is not being addressed at all. But phase 2 is from the entrance to the dumpster pad where the parks truck to collect the trash, and then also where our book drop comes in. And then phase 3 is going to be from basically the start of the staff parking spaces up through the Parkland exit.
So
So-
completing, because we're doing 2 and 3
Yeah, right,
first,
because
and
we're
we keep
doing-
saying phase
so-
1 is being done
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
Took me a minute to.
So yes, it is. It's confusing phrasing for it when this is, what they're proposing is the second phase, in the sense of it's the second time that we would be addressing the parking lot, but the section being covered is what was deemed phase 1 in the bid that went out.
Okay.
And the reason that we did 2 and 3 as opposed to 1 and 2, or a different combination, was because of what the quotes came in for each of those sections. We had the funds to address 2 and 3. We did not have, ideally, if we had been able to do 1 and 2 at the same time, then you're talking about just finishing off that staff area and leaving the main public parking as being the whole project, but there were not the funds to do that.
Nice part is, at least next year when you do the other one, we don't have to close.
Correct.
Right. And all the concrete work will all be done at
Yes.
the same
Yeah.
time.
like I say, that wider driveway will just be nice. I just,
It
today I
will,
scraped my
you know,
car again. I mean, like,
yeah.
you know, and popped the
Yeah,
curb a little
somebody
bit because
coming
somebody was,
out,
yeah.
that's fine.
Great county design.
So that'll be great.
Can I ask a different question? On the door lock system, is that just a upgrade in security, or are we having issues with the door locks?
It's not that we're having issues, it's just an idea, and that is something we could look at taking off, depending on feelings as we are getting closer, but something that we built in. So the new City Hall has key card access, so employees' cards serve as the keys to the main entrances. The benefit of that is that if you have to let someone go or have disgruntled employees, you can turn that access off immediately. The types of locks that the library has now are the physical keys that open multiple doors. And it's not just library staff that have them. We have to have them for our pest control and the cleaning crew and things. So anytime you have turnover in those areas, it's less secure because it's a key that can be copied. And so the goal with the key card access would be, yes, to improve that security feature. But that is something that, again, could be
Well, I'm 100% in favor of it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure we shouldn't be looking at moving it up to maybe 2029, you know, because it's a little lighter year, because we already have light poles at about 137 in 2030. Because the other benefit of the security thing is you know who's coming and going all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you can pinpoint, you know, exactly who it is. It's a nice thing to have, but if it's not failing, it's not failing.
Where did our bathroom go?
The women's
that's-
bathroom,
Yeah.
that is
Where,
Still
I don't
bad.
see that on here.
Smoky.
No,
It is.
because
I was just in there.
If
Terrible.
if we change anything, then we're not under the grandfather clause of it not being the
Yeah,
ADA.
ADA compliant.
compliant.
So if we,
What does that mean?
Americans
It was
with
more
Disabilities
money.
Well,
Act.
that I know.
Because I was like, why can't we just put new counters in?
Yeah.
And just use, you know, like just, then we wouldn't be compliant.
But if
and then we'd have to.
We're
have
just
to do
replacing, wouldn't just be replacing?
No,
Once you
yeah.
touch it, you have to touch
Yeah,
everything?
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're never gonna get that bathroom fixed? I mean, I don't see it on the 5-year
Yeah,
plan.
I know.
This is ridiculous.
That
Yeah.
bathroom is like from the 1960s
It's
or
bad.
something.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
Especially since we have such a nice
Right.
library, and then you walk out to the bathrooms. Just keep going in the family one, and you'll be
The
fine.
family one's like the creme de la
So, I mean,
creme.
Yeah, the family one just got redone.
Yeah, that
we
one's.
Yeah.
We just did that one.
That one got done and we couldn't believe how much it cost when we
I
just
couldn't-
did that.
I couldn't either. I went back and I looked. I
Yeah.
was shocked.
But to do the other two, we would have to do both.
I'm shocked in
To be
retrospect
fair.
that we approved the money to do the family bathroom and
You should
it
have done
was
them all.
so expensive.
Well,
and
but we
didn't
got a
do
lot of it
the-
back with, we put the
Grant.
table in, and there was a huge grant for that
The
and
grant.
stuff,
The
so
grant helps.
it went
Yeah.
towards the room too.
Does anybody ever use it? Does anybody
I think
know?
so.
Do they?
Yeah, I do.
I was curious if it ever got used.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think we should start moving forward somehow to get that bathroom in. I mean, we're in a very nice community out here, and to see that
Yeah.
sort of.
No, and I don't disagree. My biggest disappointment in this building since the day we opened it are the bathrooms, because I didn't like the design to begin with. I was told we had to have it that way,
Really.
and
You're like, why do you have
Turned
to
out-
have that space between?
oh.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, I was talking about that this afternoon.
What is that?
They insisted that was the distance we needed to be compliant with ADA.
Oh,
And so we had to live with that, and we went around with the architects on it, and they pretty much said, nope, that's the way it's gotta be, and that's what we got stuck with. And
well, we're
and
not
the-
servicing our ADA people either.
Yeah, we
Right.
are, with the family one.
Yeah,
Well,
Mhm.
Well, maybe we bring that to the next director once we have a new director.
try to figure out how, I mean, because
Yeah.
these are, you know, anything past next year, nothing's being funded at this point, so
Right.
we can always look at redoing it and adding it back in, but, yeah, I agree, man, we gotta do something.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
I mean,
point,
I feel
Barb.
like if we could just go in there and just fix it up ourselves, you know what I mean?
Paint
Volunteers.
something.
Well, I mean, that's what we do at St. Leonard, everything is
Really?
volunteer. Yeah.
Well, look at, we never got our bathrooms either till this year.
This year.
Yeah. That was how many years ago? 5 years ago?
Yeah.
So, this is our first read of the capital budget. With the discussion of the bathroom, are we wanting that to be added in soon, like next month to discuss it? But I think they need to do the quote work and stuff, so are we okay waiting for a new director to take it on?
Yeah, I think that's an awful lot to ask
Yeah.
of Sam in a month.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, we have all the old stuff written together, but that takes years out of
Well,
date.
and
Kind of like
we
asking
should
for a
have
standalone.
stuff from
Inflation.
before, because we did look into it.
Yeah.
So there's
we
gotta
did.
be a
We got
folder
quotes.
out there somewhere about bathrooms.
Didn't we get,
Some bids.
we got
did.
blueprints made.
Yeah, we
We
did
paid
all,
for
yeah.
blueprints.
Oh.
Right, I think the problem, if I'm remembering correctly, because obviously, different level of involvement, I can go looking and see what information it was. I think it ultimately came down to the price and the fact that if we were to do them, it would not be, like you said, that we can just replace the counter or do things. We did the things that we could because we did repaint the walls, and I think a couple of other things, the stalls, doors and things I think got repainted within, if I'm remembering that correctly, in the last couple of years. But that was as far as it could go
Right.
without tapping into that
Yeah,
change
the
in
wallpaper
code.
was
And
taken
so
down.
then it's not, like you said, like a small rental thing. It's the full bathroom and both of them.
Right.
Because it would, both the men's and women's would have to be done.
And if I remember correctly, the bid, as high as it was going to keep the stalls and the toilets, I believe.
Well,
Like,
what-
they would be taken out and things would be replaced, like, everything, like, the flooring would get redone, but then that stuff would get replaced to save money.
So what are we not in compliance about? Height of counters or?
Height of counters and sinks probably, and you
And,
probably need an ADA stall.
The
and a-
paper dispenser is too high.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
the-
That
Water
seems
just
like
ran
nickel
all the
and
way
dime
down.
stuff.
Maybe
Yeah.
some plumbing
Yeah.
at this point, because it's 25 years.
And police
That's-
We
Well,
may
probably
need
not,
that
but-
now.
Well, that's not
Yeah.
AD&D.
Yeah, that's probably not.
No, I wasn't saying ADA, I'm just saying in general, they may find.
Right, there
25
may be
years old,
more.
There might be
There's
ice
probably
things that have
plumbing
to be
modifications
replaced,
that
that's
need
what
to
I
be
meant,
done to
yeah.
accommodate the lower sink, because you need a lower sink.
Right.
And then,
The spacing of the stalls, I believe, was
Yeah, the
one of
spacing of the
the
stalls.
things. So possibly,
because it's out
it-
wider.
right, so it would
Right.
possibly mean losing a stall to make the stall actually have the turn radius.
You
Right.
that
gotta
it
have the
needs.
9-foot.
You
I
only
think
have to
you're
have
right.
one stall though, you don't need to make them all.
No, it's just by
Right.
extending that one, it then
It will
bumps
throw the others out.
so then you might have to move the spacing of the toilets or just have awkwardly sized, like the one stall. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with that. I just remember the discussion about it and that ultimately that was why that one didn't move forward and it was only the family restroom. I could be wrong, but I do believe there were quotes for that and blueprints drawn up, and ultimately it came down to pricing. And that's certainly something that, for the new director, you could revisit for this 5-year plan when you're saying that it dropped off. I think the problem was, again, we're entering this phase of building maintenance where bathrooms are in very bad condition, but you need heating for the building, and
Mhm.
you need a roof
Oh, yeah.
that doesn't
Right.
leak into the
Yeah.
bathroom, and the light
Yeah,
poles,
you want the
were,
books dry.
Parking lot.
concern for parking lot safety, and right now, the integrity is fine. But again, that's something that if
It's a
we got
luxury item,
closer
not a
to
necessity.
2030,
We get it.
Push those
Yeah.
down the light bulbs.
We could put a village made out
Maybe
Yeah.
it's a little fundraiser for the
Good.
bathroom.
We could let this
Go out
be
and
for
beg
this
the
year, and then
Yeah,
the next
bathroom
year.
fundraiser.
right, obviously,
We
it
could
bring it
has
to a referendum.
changed from previous years based off of new information, based off
Right.
of changing priorities.
So we could add that, the
Right.
bid
That's
for
something
that.
that-
The next.
No, not at all.
So-
Tastes like toilet.
So push down the light bulbs and sneak in the bathrooms. I mean, are we limited? Do we have a budget of whatever? Or do we just, can we ask
So all of this, again, is, there's no guarantee that we would get the funding for any of this. This is us going to the city and saying, these are the priorities that we're seeing for the library, and this is what is in the pipeline. So as Carrie was just mentioning, yes, if this was something you did decide for this year to move forward with, but then wanted to revisit the idea of slating in the bathrooms in 2030, next year, of course, revisions can happen, priorities can change. Clearly, that's happening where the roof was what we had initially anticipated from the city's perspective for 2026. So things can be adjusted and changed, and that might be something that as you get closer to that, seeing, like you said, maybe pushing off light poles, but seeing what kind of condition they're in another year or two to see. Right now, structurally, they're good. Is that still the case, that we're not concerned about that and we can postpone it longer?
So does the roof, it is leaking, correct?
We have had some spots where water has come in. Yes, it has not been,
A deluge.
yes, a deluge. It has not caused major damage, like where it's leaking on the collection and damaging books, but it is leaking, and so part of that, again, Clayton would be looking at addressing by hiring someone to come in and secure some areas where we can tell shingles have blown off, and some things like that. But a lot of it is just the condition of the roof. So it is something that will have to be.
The city has a drone. We droned our roof, and you can see everything. I mean, they just glide right over there and show you everything, so.
And again, initially that had been Brittany's thought for 2026, so I do have a lot of, she took a lot of videos, a lot of different things that certainly could look at if that was something to reconsider for 2026. But again, the city's recommendation, or the maintenance recommendation, was to try and continue that parking lot first and postpone a year on the roof.
Again, another thing you can maybe add to this is I texted Jeremiah about the Raptor thing, and we pay $7,900 for 6 buildings. So maybe it's only $1,000 or $2,000. You know what I mean?
And I wonder if there's different levels, because we don't just use Raptor for IDs. It's like that's our, like fire drill, but like it's all done on Raptor.
It is very nice, actually.
Yeah.
Like if you had a fire alarm go off, you can get a
lockdowns,
notification for it and stuff.
So
I don't know, maybe I thought it was gonna be a lot more.
It's gonna be like literally 10 times that,
$2,900 or $7,900 for
10
6 buildings.
Wow.
So
maybe they could.
Probably under a CISA contract.
yeah, would that be nice?
Yeah, right. I've got
Probably under
one
CISA
there.
contract, we can't get access
No,
to
I
it.
don't think so. I don't know.
But remember, we're
it's a
classified,
volume
library is
discount,
classified as educational, so it's an educational
They
price.
might.
We would still qualify.
True.
That's nice.
And you know what's really nice about it is it prints up little labels with people's pictures on it and like who they
They
are
have to
and
wear
stuff.
around.
I
Yeah.
don't think we're quite there yet for story time, but.
But anyways,
All right, so first read is, we're good. Do we want Sam to look at anything for next month? Or are we okay approving this, and then once we have a new director, I mean, we can talk more about it next month, but once we have a new director, we can talk bathrooms and painting the light poles and
Painting light
Raptor.
poles
I
and
think those are really
Where
good
the
things.
security
but-
system falls in the hierarchy.
Okay,
sounds good.
cool.
I agree.
So, we don't have to vote on anything. I think we're good. Moving on to the last item. All right. Next up, discussion of the 2026 operating budget review, first read. And that starts on page 24. Thank you.
Looks pretty much like last year. Couple minor changes.
A couple of minor changes. Yes. I'm sorry, did you have a
Go ahead.
question for
I was going to ask why, but you're going to tell us.
Of course I am. Of course I am. So if you look at the background, I did try to highlight all of the changes, and if you look at your colorful budgets, I realize they aren't colorful on the printouts here, but you can kind of see the different wedges of it, and of course how they colorful one here, the full-scale one, Michelle includes in there with the different sections. So the operating is, our daily business, like kind of fund. So the things that are going to be changing in there, we do these nice color-coded sections to make it nice and easy to talk about the different sections. So again, I want to call out first of all, though, this has not gone to the city for approval. Like, this is projections based off of this year's operating expenses and what we know are in the pipeline. But of course, the city is going to then gather information from all the different departments and see how does that fit into the bigger plan of the city, and that has not happened yet. So this is very much subject to change, but this is based off of last year and changes that we know are in the works. Where do we think we're headed? And so, yes, there is a slight change overall. The goal was to keep the budget very flat. So we have a 1% increase, which, again, this is not a final number. So starting in that first section, the salaries and wages, obviously, this number is coming from the city. We don't have these numbers yet. There's usually a cost of living increase. Things change, the new director might be hired at a different salary than what the last director was at and things. So we don't have numbers yet. And also health insurance and those kind of benefits are factored into there as well. So finance will give us those numbers once they have a better projection of what it's going to look like. But what we have in here right now is a 2.5% increase on this year's, because that's the standard cost of living increase that we know is going to be included in there. But that number could likely be higher depending on what insurance and things end up being. And then every section that there's a difference. So if we're going that over under the 2025 budget, we can see that difference called out kind of in details, and then it's also broken down in the background. So again, that blue section we just addressed. When we move on to that kind of orangey peach section, that is our materials budget, which we have kept fairly flat. So that first line of the print materials, that's really just rounding up, from this year's number to make a nice even break. The 1,800 that we're seeing in audiovisual materials isn't actually because we're increasing that budget line. It's because the Department of Public Instruction determines what areas different materials get recorded at. And historically, video games have always been included under electronic content, but they're really better in line with DVDs, audiobooks, other things that come out of that AV line. So they have decided that for reporting purposes, they want those numbers to be recorded out of AV. So we have moved that, which is what we spend in our video game collection, to the AV budget. But really, the main difference is going to be in electronic content. That is where we're seeing the biggest cost increases, and that is going to be because of inflation, the cost of databases going up, and increased usage of those cost per circ models like Hoopla, where the more people use them, the more the library pays out of pocket. At the last directors meeting, there was discussion about the future of Hoopla, and they're looking at different ways. The library started a Lucky Day collection within Libby and is looking at reallocating funds there. But there might, so that number again might be subject to change, but we don't really have a number yet for what that's going to look like for the system.
What's Lucky Day in Libby?
I'm sorry. So Libby is the.
Well, I know what Libby is, but what's the Lucky Day thing?
So Lucky Day in Libby is kind of like if you've ever gotten a Lucky Day or browsing item from here. They're copies of items that don't fill holes. They're considered Lucky Day because if they're in, you can check them out. And so they started a pilot project to see the benefit of Hoopla is that everything is available instantly, and that's why people love it. which makes sense. You don't want to be waiting. Sometimes those wait times can be very long for the digital books in Libby.
Oh, yeah.
So they got system funding to start a Lucky Day collection of digital content that if you were to go into the Libby app, right on that homepage, it's going to say like available now. And the system is piloting a project to see about starting a collection in there that wouldn't fully replace Hoopla, but could provide a nice alternative that's a more cost predictive model, because with Hoopla, our costs vary depending on who's using it and how much and how many people every month. This would be potentially an alternative where the libraries, instead of paying for Hoopla, would contribute towards this Lucky Day model, and then there would be copies that are available only to Bridges Library members when people go into Libby, to try and kind of satisfy that need for content now when it's not a cost per circ model.
So that's out there now?
It is out there now. There were funds given initially to start the collection. What's up for discussion is that a better model going forward to start contributing to that, because the cost would be known. It would be easier for libraries to budget for that because it's not a variable cost. It would be something we would know up front what we're contributing towards it. And if they were going to do that, what would it look like for the libraries to contribute, how much, because the goal for most libraries would be that the Hoopla costs keep going up and up and up, and that's unsustainable. And so it's not that we would want to take exactly how much we paid for in Hoopla this year and put that towards the Lucky Day. So what would that breakdown look like is something that they're working on getting those numbers from the system to see what that model would look like.
I never go to the front page of Libby, so I've never seen it. So
Oh.
I'm on Libby all the time. But
Well, it's there.
It's there.
And
I just looked at it.
Yes, and the collection, the Lucky Day collection has existed within Libby at the system level for several years. It's just now that Bridges is looking at starting its own sub Lucky Day collection that would be just for those Bridges Library members to try and
Guess I should go to the main page once in a while.
Yes, so that is what the pilot project has been for this year, and they are going to extend that into next year, where Bridges will be contributing towards that collection. But there might also be a scenario where libraries decide that they're going to stop using Hoopla and instead funnel money towards improving and expanding that collection as well. So that is those electronic materials. So you're seeing what looks like this increase in AV, that's really an allocation, but then that 2,170 plus that 1,800, adding those together is what we're seeing in additional digital content costs. And then the biggest savings that we had this year, and what's helping keep our budget so flat, is that the city started a new contract with a cleaning service at a much lower rate than our previous contract. So we can see on there what we had budgeted for 2025 based on the old contract was $66,000, and now we're looking at closer to $49,000. So there were significant savings by this new contract that they've started, and that is what's really helping offset all of these other increases that we've seen due to inflation. And then very small bump of in the conferences and training budget line. As time goes on, inflation hits everything, including the price of attending conferences, and so registration fees and things go up. That budget line has stayed flat for several years, and so we're looking at like a small increase potentially to help offset that. And
$100.
Yeah.
Is that going to cover anything?
Well, I mean,
Nope.
if the registration fees went up by $50 potentially, too.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and the computer charges, and so those are things like the server maintenance, the email security, things like that. That is also an inflation cost. So we can see, adding all of that together, that again, that overall increase was the 1%, and the goal was to try and keep the budget flat, assuming that we're able to.
I have a question, it's
Yeah.
sort of related. So, on your report, earlier, I saw that Amanda is going to be doing a presentation at the conference.
Yes.
Does she have to pay to attend since she's presenting?
I believe that she gets her conference fees waived because she is a presenter, so it would still be paying for the mileage and the hotel. But she was also, we do a rotation for attending conferences with the goal of sending a staff member to a conference at least once a year, and it was her year for that. So there could potentially be some savings. I know for sure she gets a free attendance the day that she presents. I'm not positive if she gets it for the whole conference or if it would just be the discount for being a presenter and if she was there on the other days.
I hope the organization isn't that cheap that they wouldn't give her the whole.
The whole conference,
conference, yeah.
yes, but I would hate to say she's going totally
Yeah, I
for free
know,
without
I know.
confirming that.
Right.
But I do know for sure that the day she is presenting, she would be able to stay and go to the other presentations for free. I just don't know if the entire conference is paid in full or if it's just that one day and then a discount for the rest. But I can look into that if you would like. Yes,
Who sets the director's salary? And is that presented when you guys interview? Do they know what the salary will be?
Salary range is in the ad,
Okay.
but the board will set the salary.
Okay.
There's a range.
Yeah, range.
Yeah, there was a range.
And they could enter their minimum or what they're looking for within that range, either
Yeah.
just the lower end.
It was like
or
95 to like 125 or something like that.
Something like that, 120,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Brittany was making what when she left? We just gave
Kind
her
of
a
on the
raise.
higher side,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like 103 or something. Does that sound right?
I think it was more than that.
Yeah, I think it was more than that.
Oh, okay.
She always
But we
gave-
can definitely find out that information from Kate prior to the meeting, because you're going to want to know that when we set things down.
Yeah, for sure. All right, any other discussion on this operating budget? Again, it's the first read, so we will, if you have questions in the meantime, you can send them to Sam or me or whatever, and we can put it on the.
Sure do.
I think it's smart that we're just looking into something that is not a pay-per-use model, so that you can predict your costs better than what Hoopla will allow for.
Yeah.
For the bathrooms, remember?
Oh, she-
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that
that
that will be the case. I think
But
Right.
They'll figure it
just
out.
unsustainable.
We're all gonna go
yeah.
broke.
Variable.
Well, if you run out of money, then all of
Right.
a sudden, sorry, no more.
Right, so.
And we're just
going
So at the last record, they were
Exactly.
working on that again.
Stalls.
Very, very strong support, so I think if the things being worked out now are.
It would just sit in my trunk because I don't work in the summer, so, yeah.
What is it?
I think insurance is very late. If you want to get over your summer school, or you can keep it until
Madam-
September,
Madam
like
President?
we don't have to.
Madam President,
Yes.
is it appropriate to make a motion to adjourn at this point?
Yeah, well, it is, I didn't know, are we done talking budget, or, sorry,
Yes.
everybody just.
We all went off on our own tangents, it was kind of a.
I know.
It was a cue for me.
I will second that motion to adjourn.
All right, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against.
Dave, when will you
Motion
know?
passes at
Will you
7:30
be
PM
able to-
exactly.
I'm going to finish this process.